Rock Lee was a character that impacted Naruto fans since his introduction. From the get-go, we knew this guy meant business when he no-diffed both Naruto and Sasuke. He then became a prominent character during the tuning exams, and he was just cool. Watching him fight was nice, and Kishimoto hyped him up with the mastery. We knew this guy was strong and that he had something up his sleeve, but we just didn't know what it was. We then get to the preliminary fight, and Lee has to fight Gaara. At that moment, everyone held their breaths. Gaara was established as a terrifyingly powerful and cruel shinobi that will easily kill you because that's just his nature. Kind-hearted Lee had to face this menace. That fight gave us one of the most special moments in the series, when we found out Rock Lee could not use genjutsu or ninjutsu. He had just taijutsu at his side. And then we see him fighting for his life, making his limitations turn into his strengths. He used his double-edged sword, his lotus, because he would protect his ninja way. He would use all he had. It wasn't enough. Rock Lee is defeated, his arms and legs are crushed, and Gaara moves in for the kill. Guy then intervenes. We then see Rock Lee standing up, ready to fight, never giving up, even though he was already unconscious. Guy realizes he might have been reckless, that this boy had a dream, and now this dream is impossible to be achieved because he can no longer be a shinobi. His wounds are too severe. At that moment, we learned that life can be hard and cruel, that no matter how hard you train or how much effort you put in, there is always someone above you, and life is not fair. But that doesn't mean Rock Lee gave up. Giving up is not an option. He will try everything he can to get back into form. He will do push-ups while he was in the hospital with his arms and legs practically blown up by Gaara. Gut-wrenching. That's the only way I can describe that scene. As Lee realizes that all his hard work was wasted, that he can no longer do what he used to, and even though he became more powerful, that power was no longer within him. But then, a sliver of hope appears. Tsunade, she can heal Lee, but he will have to risk his life in a 50-50 chance. It's a gamble, but Gai-sensei tells Lee that if he dies, he will die with him, and that gives Lee the resolve to undergo the procedure. It is a successful procedure, and Lee is able to fight again. He will have another shot at proving himself to the world. Maybe now, after understanding true desperation, after facing the abyss, Rock Lee is prepared to sacrifice his life to protect his ninja way, and now he can perhaps be successful. Maybe life will this time be easier on Lee. His very first foe after the surgery is powerful, Kimimaro. Lee is completely outmatched. He can't do anything against him. His kicks are not working. His primary lotus does not work either. Opening further gates is too dangerous in his state, just coming back from surgery. But in a stroke of luck, he inadvertently drinks Gai's sake and shows us the power of the drunken fist. Vintage Rock Lee appears. One of the most entertaining and fun fights in the entire series. However, that extra power provided by Gai's weird alcoholic choices is not enough. Kimimaro will finish Lee off, but then someone appears, and someone saves Lee. The one who caused all of his pains, Gaara. He has become a new person, and now he will put his life on the line for Rock Lee's sake. The man he had broken before, the man he had wanted to kill, the man he pursued in the hospital bed so he could finish the job. But now they fight on the same side. What a great moment. Two former nemesis teaming up to face a powerful enemy in the end of part 1 of Naruto. An enemy, by the way, that almost kills them both, but they manage to escape and win the fight, and they share this powerful bonding moment after it. Could that be the start of an unlikely but powerful friendship? What a way to end these characters in part 1. I can't wait to see what they'll do with them in Shippuden. Except that Rock Lee is completely forgotten. It's no secret that Kishimoto didn't focus nearly as much on secondary characters after the time skip, but Rock Lee was the one who suffered the most with that. A beloved character was reduced to a background extra, and what's worse, his arc was never finished. When part 1 ended, Rock Lee still had to prove to the world that he was a great ninja, and you may argue that he did that against Gaara. However, that was not his final battle. He needed another big fight in Shippuden to really cement his legacy as a character. Imagine the possibilities. Imagine him maybe teaming up with Gaara. There are just so many missed opportunities. We never really saw him fighting Neji, the one he's always wanted to fight, to prove to him that he was powerful enough to beat someone with deep talent. Rock Lee's contributions in Shippuden are the following: fighting and beating his clone, killing some white Zetsus, kicking Mother in half, which I have to admit is badass, but it kinda happened out of nowhere, and then he assisted Guy fighting Jubidara. Rock Lee was never the focus of the narrative again. Never. Even for a single chapter, Kishimoto decided to make Rock Lee narratively important after the time skip. That is a terrible waste, if you ask me. Now, you might say that other characters suffered the same fate in Shippuden, and that is true to a certain degree. The only character in the Konoha 11 outside of Team 7 who got a proper treatment in Shippuden was Shikamaru. He got a very nice end to his arc, and it was very well done. However, it's not the same thing comparing Lee to other characters. You have to understand that most of the characters in the Konoha 11 had their arcs finished in part 1. Neji, for instance, learned that destiny is not everything. He admitted that Naruto was the strongest foe he had ever faced, and accepted the way his father died. He himself was ready to die in his fight against Kimimaro. And then, much later in Shippuden, he dies fulfilling his arc. Even though it wasn't done in the best possible way, well, his death was fine, but it would have been much more powerful had it happened in part 1 against Kidomaru. But still, Neji's arc was finished. Choji also had his arc finished when he understood that he was liked by his friends and he was an esteemed comrade, overcoming his confidence issues in the fight against Jirobo. Kiba lost his arrogance and became someone others could rely upon. Hinata finished her arc when she faced pain and confessed her love to Naruto. Shino, well, he suffered a similar fate to Rock Lee, being very much ignored in Shippuden, but I've already made a video about that. Ino and Tenten never really had too much relevance in the story, and they weren't really popular, so naturally they wouldn't be used nearly as much in Shippuden. But Rock Lee, what they did to Rock Lee was a crime. He deserved better. He needed one last very emotional fight like the one against Gaara. A fight that would nicely close his character arc. I don't understand why this didn't happen. I don't know why Kishimoto would choose to ignore Lee so completely when he was such a beloved character and very well written in part 1. Naruto Shippuden ends with Lee being a shadow of his former self, a character with no satisfying conclusion. You could argue that Guy took Lee's place in Shippuden, and that might be true to a certain extent. Both characters are very similar, both physically and thematically, and maybe Kishimoto was afraid that exploring the same themes could become repetitive. After all, if you look at it, Guy versus Jubidara is essentially Lee versus Gaara on steroids. But still, even though the characters are similar, they were distinct enough to be explored in different ways, and leaving Rock Lee without a proper final deciding moment is a disservice to his character and to the story as a whole. That is one of the few things that disappoint me deeply in Naruto. But as we learned when Rock Lee lost to Gaara, we cannot have everything, even if we try really hard. Sometimes characters are just forgotten. Like the video if you agree, if you really like Rock Lee and if you wanted him to have a better ending, and subscribe for more content like this in the future. Comment down below ways Kishimoto could have explored Rock Lee during Shippuden, and as always, thanks for watching.